What a difference a week makes. Here we are going into week 3 of the NFL season, and the Buffalo Bills with a chance to get over 500 to 2-1. Welcome to the Buffalo End Zone podcast, everyone. I'm Kevin Carroll.
And I'm Jon Scott. Different mood around the team, I would say as well. Business-like, focused, but it's a one game. We're not going to make too much of an approach, and I guess that's what you would come to expect.
Not to be an I told you so, but you said that, and we said that after week 1, don't put too much into week 1. Now you go to week 2, everything seemed hunky-dory, John. But again, you have to sit there and say it's so early in the season right now not to put too much in last week's game either. You have an opponent in the Washington Commanders coming up. The Bills go back on the road, who are 2-0 on the season. Their wins not exactly over powerhouses, but nonetheless, there you have it right there. And you have Bills quarterback Josh Allen basically going from the sky's falling is his career shot to, oh, now he's the AFC Offensive Player of the Week once again for the 11th time, and all seems right with Josh Allen, but a lot to his game that he needs to stay focused after last week's win.
AFC Offensive Player of the Week, and you would think he could give two hoots about it. He surprised, saying essentially he thought it was a modest stat line, which it kind of was in terms of 240 or 74 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. We know the completion percentage, tying a career high at over 83%. That's really what draws it. Also, no one around the AFC really popped off that much either. But very matter of fact of, it's a team award. They only give this to people who win. I mean, I don't even think I get anything for it. It was like, we get it. You've won it 11 times, but you just passed Jim Kelly for the most ever in Bills history. That's a moment that when you go past a Hall of Famer and one of the biggest legends in franchise history in any metric, that should be noteworthy. There should be a little more there. But Josh is just straight ahead thinking, hey, that was one game. That was good. Now we got to keep doing it, and the message from Sean McDermott, very similar.
Actions speak louder than words, as we say, so we'll see as the season progresses. But, took a lot from that Jets game, came back, played. We've seen Josh Allen get AFC Offensive Player of the Week where you knew after Sunday or Monday that that's a top performance. This one, I got to be honest with you, coming off the game against the Raiders, I was like, all right, that's what you wanted to see from Josh Allen. But I don't know, were there plays left out there? Were there still some areas that need to be corrected as you go and you get ready for a Washington Commanders team that, surprisingly, John, this is Josh Allen's 3rd time playing the Washington Commanders football team, whatever they have been every time he's played them. That kind of jumped out to me that, wow, this is like, you don't really see that much. And I'm trying to figure out, it feels like there's an extra Washington game in there. I think it had to do with when they expanded the schedule, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the biggest takeaway is there is now something that shows Josh Allen, and this was kind of Sean McDermott's message today, of you can play both. You can be successful. Not that Josh does it for individual accolades, but you could grab an individual accolade like Offensive Player of the Week by playing, for the large part, smart, efficient, within yourself type of football. The Bills offense, as Josh noted, if you take away the kneel downs at the end of the game, they scored on 6 of 7 possessions. He's at 83+% completion. They were just methodically rolling down the field, as we said after the game. It was easy. It was dominating of sorts. And as McDermott said today, Josh can play that way and still have those spectacular Josh Allen-type moments, which we saw on a couple of the touchdown passes to Shakir and Gabe Davis. He still has that in the arsenal, but it doesn't need to be 50, 60% Josh trying to play Superman. It can be We know you got it in your bag. Bring it out when it is necessary, and you can still be an elite upper echelon quarterback. He's not going to have the reinforcement of an AFC Offensive Player of the Week to say, oh, well, look, this is why I should do this all the time. I think it's just more of a collective thing to reinforce, all right, Josh, we as a team can reach certain heights. You as an individual can reach certain heights if you play within this structure. I think that it's a good start and something that's will be interesting, though. The test is beginning with Washington if he can keep doing it.
Yeah, and one more thing on that topic. As the week goes on, and when you and I come on and we do the podcast right after the game, there's the immediate reaction to everything. Then as a few days have passed, you've watched a little bit more of the game maybe and some of the decisions that he made. And you're right, he stayed with the structure of what they were doing. You mentioned the touchdowns, but I still look back and jokingly I was like, oh, you should have let him more. But you had a play that broke down where Gabe Davis broke up field and he dumped it right in the breadbasket. You know, me being a jerk, I'm watching it like, oh, you put it a little bit further, he might have scored on that one, but irrelevant at that point. But that is where they can be deadly. When things break down and you have players like Diggs and Davis and others that have the awareness, Josh is on the move, let me get to an open area, that's when it's time for Josh to be the hero ball or the guy like, all right, I'm getting this downfield.
And let's not get confused or make it seem like we want or believe the best Josh Allen is 3, 2, 5,
right.
7 yards. I think, though, it's just making the smart decision and not feeling and tempering that desire to go 15 plus and drive it down the field. When the easier is 5 to 7, let his guys in space do the work rather than him carrying the majority of the load. And I think he can play within himself the way we're describing it and have a game where he's 12, 10, 15, 25. I think there can be a game that way because at some point, if he stays with this, teams are going to be forced to adjust.
Right.
And at some point, they're not going to just simply let them bleed it out, death by 1,000 paper cuts. They're going to say, well, I guess we're going to have to come up, which then maybe opens up a game that can be not 83% efficient, but 65, 70% efficient, and he's going down the field a little bit more. It's all a matter of, I think, a game of chicken of sorts, of which defense is going to say, we're gonna make you stay in this little ball and see how long you're willing to just take this, or if you're willing to keep doing this, I guess we're going to have to adjust, and that's when he can go over the top.
Yeah, be interesting to see. Now you have the Commanders up next, where Russell Wilson, even in a loss, over 300 yards passing against this defense and 3 touchdowns. So maybe the temptation is there for Josh Allen in the offense that there might be shots down. I don't have in front of me exactly longest pass and yada, yada, yada.
Well, probably was the Hail Mary.
Oh, yeah. See, I've already moved on from that. I forgot about that.
You get 50-plus yards or whatever on a hot potato Hail Mary. that's going to help you. So, the defense is interesting, and we can get into really where things are going to be problematic potentially for them. And I even put a tweet out there while watching the end of the Denver-Washington game last year, and it's up front. But I know based upon your rundown, Kevin, you want to go all the way through the Bills' offense first before getting into the pass rush.
Well, I think it's interesting in looking at the offense and how Allen was able to spread the ball around. But I'm looking at James Cook, and I'm looking at what they were able to do with not only Cook, but the whole stable of running backs and how they were indeed able to move the ball on the ground. And you have Josh Allen, John. You want to be able to chuck the ball around. You have Stephon Diggs. But maybe this is a time where the run-to-pass ratio, which is like this far apart, slowly comes a little bit closer because you now have running backs in place on this roster that can, against certain defenses, do some damage. So if you're Ken Dorsey, maybe you're sitting there like, Josh, we're going to throw the ball. We're going to get you involved. But if the run's there, we have the ability to take it now and do damage that way as well, which we haven't seen since Josh Allen joined the team.
And I didn't realize this. I'm just looking at the game logs from the first two games with the guys running the football. James Cook had 12 carries in the opener against the Jets. You maybe didn't think it. I know we discussed afterwards. We thought he was somewhat okay.
Yeah.
But he was 3.8 yards a carry. He only got 5 more carries against Vegas, but 17 for 123. You don't expect him to go for 7+ a clip per rush, and a 36-yarder will certainly help that. I think Cook in that 12 to 15 range is fine with me. I don't necessarily need to see more. Maybe he'll get more if either the weather dictates it or the Bills are up big and they're bleeding out the clock. But that's where you saw Damian Harris came in late in the game, and he got 7 for 33. Latavius Murray, 6 for 22. Those two were the difference between what we saw from the running game in the Jets' loss and the Vegas win. Obviously, the production from Cook, the biggest difference. But Harris had 1 carry, Murray had 2 in that game. And it's not like it was a blowout. You would have almost thought in a game where you're trying to minimize mistakes and they truly felt, if we don't turn the ball over, we're just going to win this football game. Yeah. Maybe they would have leaned more into the running game. They didn't. I don't necessarily need to see the Bills run it 25, 30 times a game. I don't think that is best for what their offense is built for. There will be moments, and it's good you'd like to see them. And it was interesting to me, the distribution of Harris getting 7, Murray getting 6, and Cook getting 17. I don't know how much Murray and Harris will be in the mix on a week-to-week basis. Again, I think game plan or the game flow dictated that. I think, and we say it all the time, these short passes, the 2s, the 3s, the 5s, whatever, the underneath, it's an extended run. I don't think it's a problem to get Deontay Hardy maybe some more of these quick passes in space, even getting Cook swing passes in space, getting Trent Sherfield the ball a little bit more, distributing it. So I don't necessarily need to see them lean into the run a little bit more. If they're cooking like this, no pun intended, by all means, give him the ball. He's 5th in the league in rushing, which is probably surprising to some people. But I don't think that James Cook in this running game is now going to tilt the scale maybe the way you had said at times it might.
You bring up Hardy, and I have been thinking about this during the week. Is he maybe, and maybe I'm overreacting, is he maybe not the player that we thought he was going? We're only 2 games into the season, but it looked like at the start of the Jets game he'd be heavily involved. But since then, it doesn't seem like he's really as involved as I thought he would be in this, especially with the game Gabe Davis had against the Jets and moving forward. Is he someone who is now just another player behind Davis and Diggs, along with Shakir and Sherfield hasn't caught a ball yet? Am I correct in that? I don't even know if he's been targeted.
No, he has not been targeted. He's not on the stat sheet.
Yeah.
Here's my thing with Hardy. I don't think it's a Hardy issue. I think it's the position, the role issue. What did we say about Isaiah McKenzie? He had some inconsistencies, but you saw him in camp all last year, all of that hype, and then his role never materialized. And maybe we were impressed with what we saw in the sample size of training camp and preseason action from Deontay Hardy, and now the guy has 5 catches for 13 yards, and one of those is an 8-yard reception. We've seen some of the ways they want to utilize him. In the backfield, motion, get him the ball quick. Yeah, I don't think I would have an issue and maybe would like to see a little bit more of that and get creative with ways to get him the ball. But there's a lot of mouths to feed out here. And if you're giving James Cook 10 targets in 2 games, 6 and 4, maybe those are some of the targets that the role of a Deontay Hardy would usually get, but now you have a good pass catcher in Cook. Maybe Dalton Kincaid is a slot guy. He has 10 targets in the first 2 games. if you take away from Cook and Kincaid, maybe you threw some of those to Hardy. I'm not saying, though, that you should.
Right.
It may just be a product of this team has a lot of weapons on the offensive side of the ball, and regardless of the talent of these guys, like I really like Trent Sherfield and I like Deontay Hardy, it's just maybe an impossibility to feed Diggs as the alpha like you need to, and then scheme everything else up to add in 2 more guys to be productive or at least pop off the page more than they have through 2 games. I think they're going to be guys that maybe it's like a McKenzie of that New England McKenzie game.
Right.
Or Cole Beasley had this game, or a John Brown had this game. Now, those guys are more prominent fixtures, but maybe the second time around, Beasley or someone gets a little bit more. I think that's maybe the Khalil Shakir game. Oh, he made this really big catch at a critical moment. I think maybe that's what we're more in store for with Shakir, Sherfield, and Hardy.
Yeah, I lean towards the if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If how your offense is operating, if we get what we got against the Raiders, against the Commanders, and moving forward, and that's how the ball is being distributed, why go away from that at any point if you don't have to, if you're having success doing that? And, of course, as the season rolls on and adjustments are made, like you had pointed out earlier, to what the Bills are doing, then maybe make changes then. I'm just not a fan in general of those short passes where you expect a receiver to make someone miss and then get extra yardage, like an extra 15 yards downfield. I don't think that play works much anymore. I think that's something that when I see it, I kind of cringe, like you're just asking for a 2-yard gain unless something spectacular happens. And I think that is kind of playing a role in it as well.
I think that's where creativity in the scheme. That's when you hear the phrase scheme guys open. I think that's where maybe part of that goes. I don't mind the quick screen pass or something in the flat when they're maybe even in motion or what like that. You never know. I mean, these guys can make guys miss in a phone booth, and their acceleration and speed is so great in Hardy's case that dude gets past one guy and you're going for a house call. I don't think those plays are called to get 15 yards. I think they're called to keep the defense honest, give them a different look, maybe get 3-4, like what you would maybe want in an early down situation out of the running game. And also with, again, that element of if they can make a guy miss or something breaks down defensively, it can really break to be a big play.
We spoke pretty, I don't want to say highly, that might be too strong of a word, but the Bills' offensive line against a decent pass rush by the Raiders, and now here you go with the Commanders with a decent defensive front that O-line now on week 3 might have their hands full.
The Jets' defensive line, we discussed how incredibly talented it is.
Yeah.
This is right there, if not more talented. Also littered with first-round picks. They just get Chase Young back, who immediately makes an impact. That's something I put out while watching the Denver game of that dude is a bad man, and you forget it because he's dealt with injuries. But when healthy, and it appears that's where he's at, he's the first overall pick. He's a legit talent. Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne dealing with an injury, but he's another disruptor out there. I mean, Sweat has 3 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, and 2 forced fumbles in 2 games. Chase Young plays 1 game, a sack and a half, 2 QB hits. Daron Payne a sack, Jonathan Allen a sack. They both have a few quarterback hits. I mean, those guys, when we discuss the Bills' necessity of producing pressure and being disruptive with just the front 4, that's what this entire defense of Washington is built on, is their front 4 dictating and dominating, and Spencer Brown and all of them collectively, because it's not like you have Max Crosby and then you have other guys that are fine.
Right.
This is, well, are you bringing Dalton Kincaid to chip Sweat? Well, what about Chase Young on the other side? Are you just hoping that your Pro Bowler Deion Dawkins can handle him, or vice versa, whether it's Sweat over there and whatnot? And then you got the push up the middle. Mitch Morse is a Pro Bowler. I mean, he's a good player. Osiris Torrance, Another baptism by
Right.
fire, dog. Like it's coming
Yeah.
again, and he's held up pretty well. This is going to be, I think, with the Jets, it may be tougher than that. If Payne plays, that will certainly be an argument to be had. Let's see, what do I have them at? They have 10 sacks as a defense, second most in football. This is the number that's crazy. They get a sack at a rate of 16.3% of the time. So just about 1 every 6 dropbacks, they're getting down. They're taking the quarterback down, and that's a heck of a rate there. It's going to be on Josh Allen to get the ball out quick again. Ken Dorsey to scheme it up that way, and that offensive line is also going to have to do their work. It's going to be a collective effort here, and I think maybe learning from the Jets' experience and then seeing how you could mitigate things against Vegas can play into the hands of how to operate on Sunday.
And it's always, what have you done for me lately? So Spencer Brown did his job, improved from week 1 to week 2. Now this is going to be a big step for him from week 2 to week 3 and how his performance either carries over or doesn't.
And I said this after the game. What you saw Spencer Brown do against Max Crosby, it's not like something we didn't know he could do. The issue with him has been either staying healthy and just being inconsistent. He's a talented kid.
Yeah.
I think he's still developing, and he's developing under Aaron Kromer, second season in this system. And it's just consistency, stacking it up there. You understand at the tackle position, I mean, the way that teams are structuring their defensive fronts, it's not usually just one.
Mm-hmm.
And even the Raiders, Chandler Jones situation, made it so they didn't have bookends coming at them. It's going to be a good test to see if Spencer Brown, he doesn't have to be perfect. There should not be an expectation. You should expect Spencer Brown to get beat probably a couple times. These guys are that talented. It's just going to happen. But can he hold his own? Is he the one that they're going to constantly have to feed help for? Or can he hold his own and they maybe shift over to Dawkins' side as well? You just want to see him stack it well and hold his own while not being perfect, but being another strong performance against a very strong test on whoever is going to be across him off the edge.
As for the Bills' defensive front four and getting after the quarterback, pretty good through 2 games so far, John. Now you going up against a quarterback, his second year in the league, a 5th-round pick in Sam Howell. If I'm on that defensive line, I'm licking my chops. I'm like, let's go get it. Let's confuse this young quarterback. Let us get to him, because it looks like that's something that can happen after 2 games for the Commanders, that the Bills should be able to pressure and just disrupt a young quarterback with how the defense in that front four has looked so far.
He's been sacked 10 times in 2 games.
Yeah.
6 the first one against the Arizona Cardinals, 4 last week against the Denver Broncos. That is 30th in the National Football League. We talked about the rate at which Washington produces a sack. Sam Howell is getting sacked every 14.3% of his dropbacks. So, again, 1 every 7-ish times. I'm doing math in my head here as best I can. 1 every 7.
Good luck to you, because I'm not even trying that.
1 every 7-ish, 8 times. That's a good rate. I agree. Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones have been absolutely sensational. I know we've talked about Greg Rousseau. Leonard Floyd, it appears while he's on the injury report, believes that he's going to still take the field, and that'll be good for him to be back out there. But as I had said when we discussed the pass rush going into the season, so much attention and focus when you think of getting the quarterback down is off the edge, especially with Von Miller's absence.
Mm-hmm.
But I had said the interior, I think, can be a big part of this. We saw it against Vegas. Ed Oliver, I think the first 2 games, has arguably, maybe next to Matt Milano, been the best player on the Bills' defense. The more that group on the interior, led by Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver, can get a push and either flush them out or just really get them off their spot, That's going to be critical. Young quarterbacks processing, I think, and getting the ball out quick is the toughest part of it. And if the Bills defense can disguise and speed things up for him, you'll either take him down or maybe force him into some poor decisions. He's actually, all things considered, 65% completion percentage, 500 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. They're not going to ask Sam Howell to win a game, especially against a defense like the Bills. But I think that's a solid start for a guy that I really did not have high expectations for.
Yeah, and if you look at the box score, at least from last week, it looks like he is spreading the ball around too. No one really pops off as far as 2 games into the season for the Commanders as far as putting up big numbers.
Terry McLaurin's great. He's probably in the conversation as one of the most underrated wide receivers in all of football. He's a great player. 7 for 85 and a touchdown, 10 targets through the first 2 games of the season. Jahan Dotson, another high draft pick from a year ago, 8 for 62 on 12 targets. Curtis Samuel is a gadget-type guy you originally noticed when he was down in Carolina.
Right.
Injuries been a big thing that have really pushed him off to the side in Washington, but he's playing now. 8 for 73 on 8 targets. He is a Swiss Army knife. Maybe sometimes you'll also see him in the backfield. But from a pass-catching standpoint, those are some talented guys. I think they're all first, second, or third round picks between those 3. There's some good talent there for the young quarterback to throw to.
After the Jets game, major concern over the run defense when it comes to the Bills. You have Jacobs and the Raiders come to Buffalo, and they hold him to -2 yards rushing, John. I keep biting my tongue. The Commanders, Brian Robinson, 87 yards against the Broncos, close to 100 yards a week ago. But, I mean, when you look at this Bills defense, then aside from the 2 big chunk runs against the Jets, they've been doing such a good job, John, going into this Week 3 matchup.
Brian Robinson has that's P. I was like, 8th in the league in rushing, 146 yards, 3.9 yards a carry. He's a workhorse. He's a volume-type guy. He's a nice, talented guy. Great story a year ago. Gets shot, makes his way back onto the field. It was a really great story. I will say he's not going to break off big runs. He's not a big play. He's a grinding-type back. Yep. But he's the one they lean into. He has 37 carries. Everyone else on the team, including Howell taking off and whatnot, 14 rushing attempts between them. Antonio Gibson was another guy that was a hot name years ago of this guy's talented. He has 5 carries for 18 yards in the first 2 games. As someone who was eyeing him to potentially pick up because I need a running back in fantasy, he's not the guy. He's not the guy. Talented, more, I think, involved in the passing game. But in terms of running, this is a guy that they're going to feed, and you need to be smart and stay in the gaps and play like they did against Vegas and even the back portion, I would say, of the Jets game. But I don't think there's a threat for this guy for a house call or some of those chunks you saw from Breece Hall week 1.
Let's get to the game, John. We'll start with the Bills injury report on a Wednesday moving forward. Pretty healthy the first 2 weeks of the season, but it's the NFL, John. You expect the length of the injury report to slowly grow as the grind of the season goes on. A little bit bigger naturally here in week 3 than we've seen the first couple of weeks.
Jordan Phillips' illness, he's sick.
Yeah.
You figure that should, even though I think something might be going around a little bit. Your kids going back to school, you know how that, well, we don't know how that goes, but our friend Andy Young fighting some, so he says that both his kids are sick. It's kind of school's back. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But you expect Jordan Phillips to be good. Dawson Knox back injury, interesting.
Wasn't expecting that.
Did not practice, did not know about that. We didn't know about that coming out of the game. I spoke with him along with some other media members at his locker after the game. So it might have just been something where the day after, you
Right.
feel it.
Mhm.
And this time of year, and the Bills in general, just the other caveat, they're usually very precautious with these types of things. The two we did know about after the game, Leonard Floyd with an ankle, Micah Hyde with a hamstring injury. Neither of them practiced as well. Leonard Floyd, it appears things that he was moving around and stuff, that he's trending in the right direction. So I'd be confident that he will suit up as well. Micah Hyde's a gamer, and he's a veteran. So I think it's something where he certainly is a guy that you could take it easy, and you don't necessarily need him to practice for him to play. This also, should something not feel 100% right, is why it's really great to have a guy like Taylor Rapp.
Mhm.
You want Micah Hyde out there. But Taylor Rapp, nothing against Jaquan Johnson, DeMar Hamlin, Cam Lewis, any of those guys from a year ago, but there was a noticeable drop-off. There may be a drop-off when Micah Hyde's not there. You would expect that, but Taylor Rapp is a very talented guy who started on a Super Bowl championship team. That's why you paid him. And then Terrell Bernard, limited in practice. I wasn't looking at the defense, but from what our colleague Andy Young said, who was over there, he said he looks fine, but it's what do they do, knee quad? Or so, is that what they, I mean, check my notes here. I want to get this right, of just what he specifically was dealing with. Knee quad. Look at that. I have a good memory.
You don't even need your notes.
The one thing, we'll just do Washington's real quick.
Yeah.
Deron Payne, ankle injury, did not practice Wednesday. Logan Thomas, former Buffalo Bill, in concussion protocol. He, too, did not practice. Curtis Samuel, listed on here with a hip. He was full. Brian Robinson, also a hip. He was listed as full. So Payne's a big one. And I think Logan Thomas is a big one. He's a nice little outlet.
Right.
We understand tight ends are good. He's a talented guy. Injuries have been an issue since he left the Bills.
He got smacked in that game against the Broncos.
He did. Deron Payne, if the Bills could have to only deal with the three-headed monster of sorts on the defensive line rather than a four, that would certainly be a benefit for those guys.
Yeah, I added weather this week, John. It's supposed to be right now on a Wednesday, intermittent rain. Our meteorologist, Kaylee Went, going out on a limb, asked me not to throw her under the bus. I rarely listen, but she feels that it's going to be heavy rain during the game on Sunday. A lot of talk between turf field and natural grass. That's natural grass down at, is it FedEx Field still? FedEx Stadium?
FedEx Field.
FedEx Field. So, you could be asking for a very muddy game down there and maybe have to lean on the run. But looks like it might be a weather game for this one.
My app has it at 55%, 60% chance of rain during the day. Someone mentioned even more torrential downpours, like inches of rain and some serious wind potentially popping off. That sucks.
Right.
No one wants to deal with that. And you mentioned the natural grass. I don't know the playing surface, how it compares to the rest of that stadium, but even though I haven't been there in years, it is
Right.
the worst stadium in all of the NFL.
Mhm.
It is a dump. That place is a dump. The only place that, in my experience, and I've been to every stadium in the league except for 3, and they're all newer ones. The worst one was Oakland, and their
Yes.
team moved because their stadium stunk.
Yeah.
I think at the top of the to-do list for the new ownership of Washington is getting a new stadium. We'll see how the playing surface holds up. The rest of the stadium barely holding up by a thread. But this is where a team that maybe prefers ground and pound methodically with a Brian Robinson or a game in the trenches, this could be interesting.
Take the tarp off early. Let it get wet if you're a Commanders fan.
One thing I'll say, Josh Allen in some pretty adverse weather conditions rarely seems to be affected. So I think if you're going to say who has the advantage, I would say rain or shine, the Bills should still be in the driver's seat.
Yeah, pretty easy. Bills -6.5 for this one. Last week I was a little leery with how the Bills looked in game one. Now I'm going to overreact like everyone else and say 6.5, no problem for this Bills team against this Washington Commanders team.
I wish I would have taken the points last week in my own little piggy bank. That was easy money, man. I'll take the Bills 6.5 here, even with the weather. I just can't imagine them. Washington's better than I thought.
Yeah, fair.
I just can't imagine them sweating it out with more than a touchdown score.
I don't know. 2 games in, it's still too hard for me to judge who's really good and really bad. But, you know, when you look at these two franchises, I think the Bills are just that much better than the Commanders right now.
Super Bowl revenge game.
Oh. See, I always think of the Cowboys Bills. I forget about the Redskins Bills Super Bowl all the time.
Mark Rippon.
Thurman Thomas lost his helmet. Wasn't out there for the first play, and there were all sorts of issues. You can watch NFL films.
I will not.
The over-under 44.5. I think when you look at what Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos put up 33 on them a week ago, there's no reason why this Bills team can't put up plus 30 on them in this one.
I'm going to go under. A lot of the over-under conversation also includes the other team.
So I'm going under 2. I know I paused right there, but I never finished my thought. I don't see them in this game getting to where they need to be, or the Commanders getting where they need to be to get to 44.5 points. So I'm taking the under in this one as well. But I think the Bills will put up their points as we get to the final score, say like 24-7, a final in this game.
I'll go 27-10. That might have been what I went with last week as well.
Sounds familiar.
But I think 27-10, maybe a couple field goals for the Bills. Weather also might play a factor in everyone.
Oh, of course. 3 and out, John. Of course, Chubb, that ugly knee injury, done for the season. The Browns bring back Kareem Hunt. Are they bringing him back to replace Chubb, or is he just part of a running back stable now that needed another body in there?
I think you want a veteran presence who knows the offense. Frankly, I didn't think he looked very good last year. The numbers reflect that.
Right.
The year prior to that is when they were a pretty good 1-2 punch, with Chubb leading the way and Hunt was used in the passing game and whatnot. They have said Jerome Ford's going to be the guy. He's a young player who looked pretty good against Pittsburgh. Pierre Strong, a former Patriot, who had a really good testing numbers. He's a guy they traded for late in August. I think maybe you don't want to go in with 2 young guys like that as your only running backs. You bring in Hunt, it's seamless. $4 million, though, it's a pretty high asking price considering the running back market and considering they, at least to start, are indicating he's going to play second fiddle to Jerome Ford.
Something just popped into my head when it comes to Chubb. And I recall us having a conversation about Chubb versus Ramondre Stevenson from the Patriots. And you threw out all these stats. Did we bet that Stevenson would get more yards this year? Did I make a bet with you that Stevenson would have more yards by the end of this season than Chubb? I think it was a gentleman's bet, John.
Of course. I mean, the way the New England Patriots are playing, I may still win that bet.
No, you may if they keep sticking Zeke Elliott in the game where he looks like he's washed up at this point.
It sucks for Nick Chubb.
It does.
It's just, I never saw the replay, the one they said they weren't going to show and all that stuff. I saw when they showed the replay, and that's enough from that distance. Same leg as he had the catastrophic knee injury in college, and now you just wonder, is he going to be able to come back? And even if he comes back, what is he going to look like? Now he's later on in his career, and then simply from the way this running back market in general, this weekend, I think, illustrated the problematic dynamic of where things are. Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, Nick Chubb, they all go down. And they're premier running backs that they're just showing this is why you can't really invest too much in them regardless of their talent.
Right, but isn't the point also made then when they had that big running backs convention or meeting that's why they should be paid better early in their career because of the toll and the punishment that their body takes at a position that many teams around the NFL are like, we just need a running back. We don't care who it is. They'll get what we need. The NFL is a passing league now.
Well, now that theory, which has been tested in the past, it's going to be tested again. Is Matt Breida going to come in and be Saquon Barkley?
Right.
Is Jerome Ford going to come in and be good enough replacing Nick Chubb that you don't feel like you need that? Is Joshua Kelly? I think we've seen enough Joshua Kelly out in L.A. He's not Austin Eckler. That's where I think some of this dynamic is. It's also just going to come back to, you mentioned the tilt for the Bills with James Cook and these three stable of backs. It's going to be, at some point, the league always is reciprocal. Like everything always turns over. It's so pass happy. At what point is a team going to say, when you're going undersized at linebacker and you're going undersized on the interior and whatnot in the defensive line, at what point do maybe teams flip the script and say, we're just going to pound the rock and you're going to have to counter, and that's where the value of a back like a Jonathan Taylor or something goes up?
There are uniform people and non-uniform people out there, John. This is 2 weeks in a row I'm going to bring up uniforms because since I was a kid, I was always into uniform combinations and whatnot, and you and I were having a conversation when the Browns took on the Steelers the other night that, well, on paper, when I first saw the Browns and they're all white with a white helmet, I thought it was pretty bad looking. But when I saw it in a game against the Steelers and they're black and yellow, I got to be honest with you, I didn't have a problem with it, and I thought it looked kind of sharp on TV.
Hated it.
I know you did. And tell me what you hated. I mean, I know it's not classic Browns. It's like screwing with the New York Yankees uniform.
I don't even know if it's that. I just thought the white helmet looked stupid. It's just like, I didn't mind the all-white uniforms.
What
that
if they put Brownie the Elf on the white helmet?
Put a bulldog or put the dog on there.
You could do that.
Put the dog on.
Is it because there's no logo then?
No, I mean, they never have a logo. I just thought it's like it's white. What are you, Penn State? Get out of here.
But that brings me to the Bills and all this talk that I brought up last week. I'm tired of them going all blue, all red. This week, the Bills are going all white. All white I don't have a problem with, just because growing up in the 70s and 80s, most teams on the road were all white. But the all red, the all blue, and I love the blue pants. I just think the clean look is white shirt or blue pants, blue shirt, white pants for the Bills. I don't really like the other combos.
Fair. I'm trying to think of them
Especially the red. The red is nauseating to me. Like, it makes me sick watching.
Get off my lawn.
It does, though. It makes me, like the Bills game against the Dolphins last year when they were in all red. If I'm working and looking for, like, big plays, I will not go look up stuff for video from games where they were red.
I'm not going to lie. I don't know if they do this. I can't think of it. Give me the blue jerseys with the red pants.
Oh, my God, John.
Give it to me.
That's embarrassing. Oh. No.
You could comment and tell us what you think about the premier.
I'm sorry, did you say blue shirt, red pants? Red
Yeah.
shirt, blue pants.
Blue with red pants.
I don't even know if I could watch that one. Not good, John. Now, all one color uniform for hockey, we're good with, John. Sabres about to start up as we get ready to wrap up here. The NHL starting up this week. But, John, also the Ryder Cup just around the corner. I play hockey every weekend. I love hockey. Hockey's a blast. But give me that Ryder Cup because there's plenty of time to deal with the Sabres in their chase to finally make the playoffs later. Locked in next week to what's going on overseas with the Ryder Cup, and then eventually, the Sabres can work their way in. Aside from my job, of course.
They're not doing anything. It's practice. The Ryder Cup is true competition. Also, look at you jumping the shark here. That's in like 9 days.
But Sabres camp, I'm talking more of the excitement right now with Sabres training camp starting up. I don't even care. I'm still looking forward to Bills game, NFL, Ryder Cup next week, and then maybe start really digging into the Sabres 2 weeks down the road.
When they're playing real games. That's a completely logical mindset.
But
here.
you're not like that with football. If it was the start of Bills camp during the Ryder Cup, I'd be more interested in Bills camp.
Yes and no. I don't know. Also, I was going to say also nobody plays in the preseason, but nobody really plays in the preseason in either of them. They do
maybe
like half the
just
team.
Be no
and
preseasons.
Maybe. I think you should be excited about the Sabres just in general. I think big expectations for them to end their drought. Can't have 2 droughts in franchises in the past 30 years that are 20 years that are 12, 15, 7. You can't do that. It's time.
When you look at sports and cities and their success, they tend to clump in with one another.
Like the Cavs and the Indians should have won in the same year in 2 months. Yeah, well, stupid Cubs.
All right, Bills at Commanders coming up at 1 o'clock. Ooh, excuse me, on Sunday. John and I will be with you after the game, along with Fred Jackson with the Buffalo End Zone postgame show, and then a fresh podcast coming your way following the game on a Sunday afternoon. As always, everyone, thanks for tuning in to us, and we'll catch up with you over the weekend.